Hello and welcome. In this episode, I'll be starting on my build project for Legions Imperialis. This project is it's a perimeter wall for the Breach the Stronghold scenario in the Devastation of Talaran campaign book. As you can see here, I've already been working on it for a while, so right now I'm in the process of painting. Still got quite a bit of work to do, but it's going pretty well, and I'm excited to share these videos with you, so let's get into it. I started out by planning the project with some rough sketches of how I envisioned the end piece looking. Obviously, walls that fit the dimensions, 10 inches long by 4 inches wide. So what I did was I measured out and marked 10 inch by 4 inch bases that I would then cut out of high density particle board using a table saw, plus the 8 inch by 4 inch gate piece. With all the bases cut, I then lined them up on my table to make sure everything was matching up correctly. I also cut bases for 2 destroyed wall sections. I then measured and cut out the foam pieces for the core of the wall structure using a hot wire foam cutter and lined them up atop the bases. I ended up having to cut out another long strip and then cut those to fit the ends of my walls for each of the 4 wall pieces. Next, I went back to the foam cutter and cut out the buttresses that would go along the front sides of the walls. I didn't actually measure the wall buttresses. I just kind of distributed them evenly along the walls, 2 for the gate and then 2 for each other one, and then I had several extras and I considered adding some to the back as well. Gribblies, whole box full of gribblies. I also set up some extra manufactorum bits to fill out the bases and break up the negative space. So next it was on to texturing. So I rolled up a sheet of cooking foil and then I just got to work rolling out texture on all the different wall pieces, really just to kind of give it that weathered concrete look. I also went outside and found a nice busted up brick in the backyard, which I then used to add some deeper cracks and battle damage here and there. At this point, I realized I should maybe put the camera in a more stable position so it doesn't come crashing down when I'm texturing my walls. I spent the next hour or so rolling in texture with my foil and just kind of smacking the walls here and there in random spots with the brick. Really just to make the concrete look more weathered, kind of beaten. It's a little bit of a tedious process, just, standing there rolling out foil on all of the foam. But ultimately, I think it was definitely worth it. I think it really helps kind of sell the overall look and feel that I was going for. Yeah, I really like the way it came out. Some of the walls have these gaps kind of here and there where they maybe don't quite line up exactly right. For the most part, I tried to make sure that everything fit together as smoothly as possible, but in the end, some of them ended up being not exactly. There's a little bit of gaps here and there, but once it's on the table, I mean, it looks great. You can really can't tell unless you're really looking for it. So you can see here, I actually went through the process of texturing all of the little buttress pieces, even though I didn't actually end up using any on the back sides of the walls. I did, however, end up using those pieces for the destroyed wall sections. So they ended up working out pretty much perfectly because I had exactly the amount that I needed for all of the front sections and then the 2 destroyed wall sections that I had started making. After I finished texturing all the walls and buttresses, I realized I still needed wall pieces for the destroyed sections. So I went back to the foam cutter, fired it up, and started sliding foam through. These pieces are much smaller than the other walls, as I really only need the ends that go on either side. These pieces need to be sort of jagged and ruined. So I got out my handheld hot wire foam cutter and just, set about cutting away from what ultimately will end up being the insides of the pillars. The cuts here don't really need to be that precise, just sort of a rough cutaway so I can kind of see the direction I'm heading in. Once I had those end pieces cut out, I started gluing all my wall pieces into place. Just making sure that everything fits nicely. Edges are lined up along the base, and wall segments are lined up with each other. With the base of the walls glued into place, it was time to start working on the battlements. For this, I knew I was going to use the Civitas kits, mainly the small wall sections and flat rooftops. I figured the easiest way to get the battlements started would be to use plastic card for a base, just to kind of glue all the roof tiles to. So I started by measuring out 10-inch sections, but I only made them as wide as my ruler, which is not quite as wide as my walls. It doesn't really need to be, since I'm going to be gluing the Civitas bits on top of it, and then that on top of the walls. Basically, the idea here is to just take the plastic card strips that I'd cut out, and then along the edges of those, I'm going to glue the Civitas wall bits. Once those are dry, then I can just glue the plastic card right on top of the foam for the wall itself. So I knew I already had enough of the Civitas rooftop pieces to cover the entirety of my walls, but I wasn't entirely sure how many of which pieces I had, or if I was going to do some kind of specific layout for each one. So what I did was I got out some that were already kind of cut and ready to go, and I kind of started just laying them out on top of the one piece that I already had there on the end to kind of see what kind of layout might look good, if I wanted to use any of the pieces with the rooftop details on them or not. Because initially I hadn't planned on it, but then I was like, well, if I don't use those sides, I'm gonna have to shave that down so that it fits nicely on top of the plastic card. So maybe I should just use some of those, and then that way I don't have to go through that whole process. And it actually will also add some detail to the top of the wall. I'm really loving how this is coming out. I'm also really excited to get the destroyed wall pieces done. Well, I mean, the whole thing really, but it's nice to see kind of the direction that it's going at this point, with the ability to destroy whole sections of the wall, right? I feel like that's going to be a lot of fun. All right, well, that's it for this week's video. So next week we'll be adding more plastic bits detailing battlements on top of the walls. Those will all be getting knocked out, and probably a gate. I still need to figure out a gate. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. Cheers.